Jonah, and what is the Proton?
Okay. So I grew up in Newfoundland, Canada, but I've been in the US since college. Recreational, maybe advanced recreational tennis player my whole life. And then mechanical / electrical engineer. Ended up, oh, I should turn off notifications. That's got to be an option. Sorry.
Mute buttons are always good.
Okay, that should stop it from being. Sorry about that. So, yeah, I worked in high tech in Silicon Valley for about 20 years, maybe almost the last 10 of it was at Apple. And then at some point in there, I realized I had reached the point in my life where I needed a little breather. So I arranged with my wife to take about 6 months off, quit my job, and went out and bought a ball machine on Craigslist. Suddenly I had time in the middle of the day and there's nobody else to play with me. And I liked it. I like hitting with a ball machine, but it really seemed pretty primitive. I had this, it was almost 50 pounds, barely fit in my car. I had to lug it into the garage every night to charge it up. And so then I thought, well, maybe if you wanted a state-of-the-art ball machine, you shouldn't have been shopping in the bargain bin on Craigslist. And I started looking for a new ball machine, and it's the same thing that I had bought from, 1990s ball machine was right there for sale on the vendor's website. So it was pretty obvious that there's not been a lot of progress in ball machines since really that sort of two-wheeled throwing version came out in about the 80s. So that got me tinkering, and I love to build things in my garage. So I actually tried a whole bunch of kind of crazy ways to shoot balls, electromagnetics, and I built an air cannon one. Like, I don't know if you remember, the very first ball machines actually were a vacuum cleaner shooting in reverse. So I messed around with some out there stuff, and then finally I had a friend who said, there's been a lot of technology improvements in the last 30 years since that ball machine was made. Why don't you just see how good can you do it if you sort of take state-of-the-art everything and make it as small as you want. And that was my main goal, is to be small and portable. That was my peak frustration point with the ball machine. And so there's obviously battery technology is way better. The old ball machines pretty much had a car battery in them, a lead acid battery. There have been a lot of motor improvements in the drone space. There have been 3D printers have developed a whole bunch of motion control technology to move the little print heads around so you get accurate printing. So there are all these puzzle pieces available to me. And so I just started building, trying to see how small I could go, how light I could go, taking out weight everywhere I could. And the ball machine went from 40 pounds down to 17 pounds or something. And the prototypes could, with these motors, they spin super fast. You can shoot just as hard as you could with, anything else on the market. And so I was like, okay, this could be a product. And then the other happy coincidence I discovered is that once you really know, if you know exactly how fast the wheels are spinning and you know what angle you're aimed at, you can actually do a really good job of predicting where the ball will land. And my old machine, every time I took it out, I just I'd fiddle with the knobs for 10 seconds and I'd shoot about 15 balls till I had something I could hit, and then I'd run around to the other side and start swinging.
And hit the last 35 because you didn't have that many.
And hit the last, exactly. And hit the last 35. So once I realized that I could predict where the ball was going, tell it this speed, this spin, these angles, and I know where it lands, then I kind of work backwards. So the app now, you just tell it where you want it to land and give it a speed and spin, and then it figures out, okay, here's what I have to do to aim it there. And so suddenly the interface is a quantum leap up over everything I'd used previously too, because you can just say, give me a drill with 4 shots. I want one here, one here, one here. And it just pretty much works. I mean, there's, you can have old balls, or you can be at altitude or something that adds some inaccuracy. But I was surprised that it could pretty much do what I asked it straight off the bat. So at that point, I convinced my wife that I should try to make a company out of it. And I had all the pieces. I knew high volume manufacturing from my days as an honest engineer. Um, and so I just started, building things, getting parts made in mostly the parts we make them in China, and then we put them together in the US here. And I built a bunch of stuff in my garage, little testing machines, many prototypes, and then finally found a manufacturing partner here in California. That was also, strangely enough, a Craigslist story where this guy came to my house to buy an air hockey table for his kid that I had posted for sale. And we just started chatting. He's like, "Oh, I'm into tennis." And I said, "Oh, you should see what I'm building in my garage. It's pretty fun." And so he came over to look. He's like, "Well, I actually have a factory that builds things in San
No.
Jose area." Yeah, totally random. And I tried later. I like, okay, I'm going to go visit all the factories so I can pick the best one. And in the end, I was like, this guy, they know what they're doing. He's friendly. He's into tennis. Um, and off we went. So that's the origin story.
Ah, that is fantastic. And all of that, you know what I heard, Bobby? Did it backwards. Let's do it backwards. Let's find what I want to do is I want to be on the other end and say, here, put my phone down, or even best case, the watch. I don't have anything to put down. And then the thing does the thing. Right. And it's one of the theories I've had for a long time is work backwards. Find the interaction that you want and then figure out how to make that work. Is that
Yeah.
when in the process, Jonah, did you find that you could say, okay, I'm to the point that I might be able to just magically have that wonderful experience on the other side, maybe with an app, like that, however that works in your system. I'm sure you're going to tell us all about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, it was one of the first decent prototypes, but it was clearly like very much a prototype, like little, kits of metal rods bolted together. And I would go out there and I would do experiments where I would just shoot the same shot maybe 20 times in a row. And I'd run around, and everywhere the ball hit the court, I'd drop a penny down until I had this like collection of pennies and I could see sort of where they were. And then I'd move it. I'd say, okay, let's turn up the speed 10 miles an hour. And I'd map out another collection of pennies and get some data on like dispersion. And that was kind of when I realized that, these are pretty tight. And it's like when you add this much topspin, it always changes this amount. And you know, then I went back and I actually found a research paper from some guy in Australia who studies these things, and he gives you all the equations for like a baseball or a tennis ball, a sphere with this much spin and this much energy, and here's how you calculate where it's going to land. And with a few fudge factors here and there, that's kind of the engine that's inside the app now, trying to figure out, okay, I want this ball. It will calculate something, and it breaks down a little bit at the extreme limits, but for most kind of mid-range, mid-spin shots, it's surprisingly accurate.
And
So
still better than most of what's out there, I would guess. And I have some experience personally with it. I got a chance to hit with it a few months ago. A friend of mine comes out, Shaun, and he's a tennis addict. He had hundreds of rackets. I mean, literally hundreds of rackets in bags, and just because he's a former ATP stringer. And he's just a gear guy. He's like, Shaun, you've got to see this ball machine. I'm like, it's a ball machine. It throws like, nothing interesting has happened in the ball machine world, I don't know, ever. Okay, you're gonna tell me, oh boy, this is great. He rolls it out there. I'm like, okay, well, where's the cord? Like, wait a minute, battery? Okay, there's a good start. And then just each little interaction that I had, and I haven't worked with a ball machine since maybe 2006, so it had been a while. So me looking, I'm like, okay, that's good. It comes up, okay, that might actually fit in my car. Okay, every interaction was positive, is kind of where I'm going with this. And he was like, yeah, right over there. Where do you want it? Like, what do you mean, where do I want it? Don't you, isn't there like a dial and a knob and a crank? He's like, no, just right here. It's all good. I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's got a battery in it. It's going to be done in 15 minutes, right? It's like a couple hours at least. Really?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, I'm sure that's going to be Bobby's big question. And I'm going to steal it from you, Bobby, with it rather than leading it into it, is what else is going on in the ball machine world? Because Bobby's usually targeting the business. He's like, hang on, from an ecosystem point of view, Bobby, you'd ask the ecosystem, like, what else is out there? What else is going on? You wanted to target that, didn't you, in some way?
Well, yeah, I'm just very interested in tennis always amazes me that when we got into the court reservation system after there being none for 20 years, there's five. The
Yeah.
same thing with the ball machine technology had been stagnant for so long. I guess when Playmate, I guess and this is going back to more than 20 years when they came out with the one that was next to 10 foot tall that
The
could hit
big green
120
machine.
mile an hour serve. That was the
Yeah.
big thing. But then again, nobody wanted it because nobody had a place to put it, and it cost way too much. So again, it just kind of died. So, but all of a sudden, we're seeing this resurgence, whether it be the slinger. We found another gentleman in New York with Ms. Play. Jonah, have you, when you were building yours, but did you look at some of the other ones that were also, developing at that time?
You know, my plan when I started out was to do kind of a Kickstarter thing with it. And as I got further into it, I decided that I wasn't actually going to do a Kickstarter. I was just going to do my own sort of homebrew Kickstarter. So I'd set up my own website, try to get some pre-orders, see if there was interest in this product, but not actually go through the official Kickstarter, system. And just about when I was going to do mine was when Slinger ran their very successful Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
So that was another good clue that there's some appetite out there for something different in the ball machine space. I don't know the third company you mentioned, and I have seen. I think probably we and maybe Slinger as well are sort of pushing the older, the incumbents to start to up their game a little bit. I am seeing some improvements across the board in ball machines, but yeah, I think it's just kind of, once people get a hint that there's better ways to do things and everybody starts thinking hard about it and doesn't want to be left behind, and I seems like there's definitely a resurgence in the space.
And I might be thinking way too deep into this, but I'm very curious. Hydrogen, where did that originate from?
That's just some company brainstorming. I'm trying to think of a catchy name, and I want something with a .com address on it, so it's not dot Newfoundland or whatever you can put on the end of it. And it is unbelievable how many names are taken. Everything I thought of, I go look it up and gone. And then I don't know where the hydrogen came from, but it was it's lightweight, it's powerful, explosive. I just like the connotations. It's not a weird thing to remember and spell and stuff. So I was quite surprised that it was available. And that's when I was like, all right, this will work. I'll grab that, and off we go. But there's no special connection to it. Just
well, but that's good. That's where I was going with it. Green energy and the future. So that's how it kind of connotates. And then Proton.
Yeah. Proton. That I don't know, but I forget where that popped in. That one I was more sure of early on, and then I sort of I still have this idea that as we release other products, we got there'll be a neutron and I don't know, maybe not a boson. That doesn't sound so good, but some other particles that can make up the family name of the next products we churn out.
I love the engineer type, Bobby. It's like the brain goes, okay, the engineering type of person that says that, and then also I'm not sure marketing how we got there. No, I don't know, but it was gonna be this way. But you led me, Jonah, into my next question, which is, I don't see any other products. Are there plans for anything? I'm kind of skipping ahead to one of the later questions, and then we'll have to back into diving into the ball machine and everything they can do. But are there maybe they should give me the short answer? Are there plans for more products yet, or is it just kind of you're leaving it open-ended?
Yeah, no, I'm starting to think about, more than starting to think about it. So, I guess one thing that I didn't want to do with this product, one of the things that annoyed me about the ball machine business up to now is sort of all the little upsells that you get. Like, you want to buy the ball machine. Okay, we got something that shoots balls, but you want a remote control, it's another $100, and you want it to go left and right, it's another $100, and you want it to, just that. I was like, just make the ball machine that does everything that it should, and figure out what price you need to sell it at. And so I kind of, lumped in all the features that were really important to me in this product. So it's not like I'm holding out on, I don't know, whatever secret idea is. I think pickleball is a pretty natural and easy adjacent space to get into. I know there's a few pickleball machines out there, so that I think that would be pretty clear on the roadmap. And we spent some time this summer. I've had a number of people ask me about serving returns, right? They want to practice service return, and it's pretty hard to do with a ball machine because you got to get it up, hoist it way up in the air. But because we're so light, we don't have wires and stuff, it's a much more manageable problem. So we've built some pretty good prototypes of a serve stand, and it doesn't go at the baseline where it has to be 10 feet in the air. We put it in at the service line of the opposite side of you, so it's a little closer and maybe 6 feet high. Feels very fast because you're kind of close to the ball. So I suspect the serve stand will be the first accessory that we release, and then I think pickleball would be an easy machine to make. And then there's a couple of interesting ideas that I will keep under wraps for a moment, but
yeah, save for later. I like it. So there you go. Back to the machine itself. So tell me why. I'll ask the general question. Why are you better than everybody else, right? What's special in there? So you looked at it just from an engineering point of view, and at some level, probably even say, okay, forget the tennis side. We sometimes get stuck in the tennis bubble of I like the word you use, the incumbents. Like here's how the other people, the other businesses, companies have done it. Well, what if we did you start from scratch and you just said, like you said, you pieced it together with different things and just said, I don't care how it was done before. What is possible?
Yes. So I did a lot of kind of, I don't know if you call it basic science, but really sort of low level experiments of like how, you can imagine you have these two wheels that are spinning. The friction that you can put on that ball is a big factor. And it turns out that as you speed up, like what's the limit of how fast I could shoot a ball? And it turns out that it's not the motors. Our motors can spin fantastically fast. It's at some point, you've got a ball that's going to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles an hour over 2 inches or whatever, that it's in contact with the wheels of the machine. What's the limit there? And so did a bunch of experiments to figure out that pretty much for the size of wheels that we use, about 6-inch wheels, you can't get over 70 miles an hour. There's just not enough grip on the ball to accelerate it to 90 miles an hour. And I know some ball machines advertise that they're shooting 90 miles an hour, but we bought almost all of them and tried them out, and everybody with that size wheels caps out at about 70. It's just kind of the physics problem. But like, how much weight can you take out of the wheels before they, as the ball accelerates, the wheels are slowing down a little bit. And so I want that, I want to make my wheels as light as I can, but I also need enough energy that they don't, get slowed down by the ball shooting out. So I did a bunch of sort of basic experiments like that, like how hard should you squeeze the ball? Where does that cap out before you can't get any more grip on it? Are there shapes? I don't know if you look at our wheel, the cross section is kind of like a V, sort of like a V belt in a pulley or something to get a little extra squeeze on the ball. So I did a bunch of kind of low level experiments like that to really optimize what the shape of the wheel is, the spacing of the wheels, how fast we could shoot. And then, the motors, so like if you take apart a normal ball machine, there'll be a big, motor might weigh 2.5 pounds on each wheel. But we, took these little drone motors, tried all different sizes, how fast do we need to accelerate and decelerate? So, it was really just kind of like taking each little piece, even the batteries, like how, if we really try to be efficient with our power consumption everywhere else in the machine, can we kind of whittle the battery down to a smaller size? And so it's just really, it's not rocket science, it's just optimizing each little piece of it. And then it turns out that, you make a 30% improvement in 10 different places, and all of a sudden it really adds up to something that customers notice. But I think it starts out like, I knew what I wanted as a tennis player. And so like the end goal was pretty clear to me, and I didn't have to go, do a bunch of customer surveys. I just built the thing that I knew was going to make me happy. And, as it turns out, lots of people feel the same way.
Yes, solve the problem at hand. And that is such good advice. We hear that a lot. Bobby mentioned earlier the court reservation systems. It's solve the problem for one person or one organization or one location. And if you combine that with what was my grandfather's advice always, it was make yourself happy first. That way, at least one of you is happy. and I love it because it's like, you know what? If I could build the thing for me and say, what is the thing that I would want? And in that case, hopefully that scales to everybody else, right?
Yeah. And if it doesn't, you got one ball machine in your garage that makes you happy, and you
Jonah with a badass
regular job. That's right.
You always get a regular job. Exactly. So Bobby, specifications. Have you any more experience with recent ball machines, like the differences and costs, and where would you go with that?
Well, it's gonna be a couple prong question here because I'm worried about our future as tennis instructors. Do you know the folks at Swing Vision, Jonah?
Yeah. They're just down the road from us, and
they're also former. I want to know what's going on at Apple. That Apple has this tie to tennis, and obviously Origin spot.
Somebody knows somebody.
A lot of brilliant minds. Well, because I'm afraid we're going to get replaced here. I mean, I see the ball machine going into business with Swing Vision. Why do you need a tennis coach anymore? You're going to have everything you need right on your phone. Is that somewhere?
Yeah, but I guess I see maybe in the long term that there's a challenge there, but in the shorter term, I think it's going to help tennis coaches, right? Because you can access people, give them drills, see what they're doing, give remote, without actually sitting out on court for 8 hours in the blazing sun feeding balls by hand. One of the nice things about the Proton is it's got a little coach mode thing, so you can most ball machines are just like this carousel stirring the balls, and they fall in every 3 seconds or whatever. We load the balls, and then we kind of catch it in this preload chamber, and then we can release them one at a time on our own timing whenever we want. So when you're making a drill, obviously if you're at the net, the balls are going to be coming to you with a shorter interval than when you're at the baseline. So you can kind of vary the timing through your sequence, but you can also control it remotely as a coach. So you can just sit there and say, okay, feed me a ball now, and then talk to somebody about their, whoops, that made something happen on my screen. But be on the other side with your student and feeding the balls one by one, rather than being across the court feeding with a racket. And I think
Bobby was just talking about that. Yeah.
So if you combine that with Swing Vision, maybe you're not even in the same time zone as your student, right? You're looking at them, you're talking to them over FaceTime or whatever, you're feeding balls one by one, getting the data. I think it's going to help teachers before it hurts them, but maybe someday we're all computer replaced.
And the good news is I'm really old, so my shelf life isn't that much. So by that time, you're right. It's not going to affect me. And I am, despite the age, I'm a fan of the technology. And we were just talking about that. So, and I don't know, from a marketing standpoint, we laugh because it makes perfect sense what you said. Wouldn't you like to be in proximity to your student to be able to talk? And the ball machine makes a lot of sense to do it. But we get pushback because, first of all, we're bums to begin with. Oh, you're a tennis coach. You don't do anything for a living. You play tennis. So if we take away the one physical activity we do, which is pumping balls, we're really on a vacation to most people. So a lot of people, the coaches, have a stigma attached to working with a ball machine, where I had a friend who was very, all in on it because he just liked to be able to stand next to a student, show, tell, and do. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to tell you how to do it. Now you go do it, and I'll be right next to you. So, have you gotten any feedback? Have you worked with any coaches and gotten any feedback how they're integrating it into their lessons?
I haven't talked to too many people, but I know we're selling them to coaches. I think when people try it, they get it right away. I mean, you look at all the golf instructors, right? They're right there with their students, cock your wrists a little bit this way. Let me it's really nice to be kind of hands-on and demos right on the spot. To me, it seems like a natural fit, but yeah, there's the way things have been done, and maybe it's slow to change, but we definitely, yeah, I know we have quite a few coaches in our list of people who bought machines.
Do you see any integration with Swing Vision? The possibility for?
Swapnil and I meet up every couple of months and say, yeah, we should really do this when you're not busy and I'm not busy. Why? Let's get this done. So it's certainly something we talk about, and I think it makes a lot of sense. We just have to kind of get it done.
It makes a lot of sense to me too, and I agree with you. I think so much. And again, this is going back a long time when I was a junior, but one of the clubs offered video, and it was a big deal for that once a quarter that they'd bring out the super 8mm camera and you'd get your your video, and it's always been cost prohibitive to do it today because you need somebody to pump the balls, you need somebody to hold the camera, you can accomplish all this. So like you said, short term, this is a boon for tennis instructors. When you guys make that partnership, because it is a natural fit and it makes our life easier, and then it gives us instant feedback of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So we're rooting for you.
All right. Well, maybe this will be the motivation to send a high gear.
We've spoke to them too. I know, because I'm a big fan, and I love what they're doing with the lines. I know that their threshold on calls is 95%, and I'm like, 95% is still, or 90% is still a lot better than what's going on the court already. But I understand where they want to, where they're trying to accomplish. But yeah, it's an exciting time in tennis. It took a while, but technology is finally starting to work its way in, and hopefully it'll be embraced.
Yeah, no, it's a great place for tech. I mean, it's always had, the rackets are supremely engineered, and the shoes, and it's not a place that's lacking technology. But I think there's a few more places to, fill in the corners and really bring it up to speed.
Well, I like the idea of the coach using the ball machine more, because from Jonah's point of view, he says we're not lacking technology. I don't think the players are lacking technology, but one of the things we found is the coaches aren't quick to assimilate in new technology. Yeah. So that making those adjustments as a coach to say, well, we've done it this way for thousands of years. I'm just not changing. Sorry, I'm too old, as Bobby says. It's not gonna affect me later. Well, it could. And in this case, we take a couple of ball machines out and we say, hey, let's see if we can show people what this looks like. And maybe it improves the tennis lesson on court. Maybe it's just something we haven't been interested to do because they've been too heavy. They've been too expensive. They've been too whatever. But now that you've come out with something that is, I'm looking at the specs, that is just smaller. It's one thing to be better and say, hey, I got a better car than the other guy. Well, okay, what else is it? Or sometimes you have to pay for better and say, hey, you get what you pay for. But in this case, looking at some of the comparisons with those similar other ball machines, not only is it actually affordable, and it's not the cheap one that comes in the bag and the wheels, but it's actually affordable. And like you said, everything comes with it, which I really appreciate. I buy it and I don't have to say, oh no, I forgot to get the thing that makes the thing do the other thing. And now it's everything comes in the box, right?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it didn't have to work out that way, but it was just kind of like, as you sort of a virtuous circle, as you make things smaller and better, then they don't have to cost as much. And I mean, some things cost a little more because they're higher tech and stuff, but the box that the ball machine comes in is smaller and lighter and cheaper to make. The frame is lighter and less metal in it. It's kind of, there was a bit of a virtuous circle. And so in the end, yeah, it's just better on a lot of axes, but still doesn't have to cost twice as much. Your comment about like old tennis coaches being slow to pick up on new things like that, I'm sure that's a little bit of reflection on them, but it's also a reflection on the technology and whether it's like easy to use or not. So customer number 2 after me was my now 81-year-old dad, and he didn't have a cell phone. He's like, I don't want to be pairing Bluetooth this and that, but I want a ball machine. And so we he actually still doesn't use the phone, although the app is clearly the right way to use it. He won't go there. But I just had to make some like reasonable, easy to control buttons on the back so that you could get into it, even if you weren't like Mr. Computer Man. So I think, part of that is on the designers to make things that are really approachable, even for, people who are not way into smart home technology or whatever.
The guy who just wants a
Whatever it is.
knob. Just give me the
Just wants
knob.
a
Can I
knob.
turn it up a little bit? That's all. I don't want to have to go to my phone. My father would say the same thing.
But if that's the gateway that gets them started on it, and then you can say, hey, by the way, if you use the phone, you could have it shoot out this cool sequence of shots. He's getting there. Next year I'll have him on the phone.
And
I
from
like
a practicality standpoint, just so, because this is something I had asked Jonah about, we used to do a ball machine club at White Columns, and we had one of the older machines, and we were fancy because we had the remote, but you had 100 people accessing the remote. The remote spent more time lost than it was found. It would break, whatever. You can have one ball machine, Jonah, and everybody can have an app on their phone and work it individual.
Yeah. It's not linked to just your phone. Only one person can use it at a time, but you can use it in the morning and somebody else can use it in the afternoon. There's no limit that way.
So that's a
and
great enticement for the tennis players.
I don't want to like if it's running all day, every day, I guess we'll find out, but they're sort of like the club machines that really get abused because they live at the club and nobody owns it and nobody cares. I would say our market is more targeting the individual tennis player, so you can like carry it out to the court and carry it back. But I know there's some clubs that have it and they seem to be holding up just fine. So when we first made the machine, we count how many shots come out of the machine, and so I had in the warranty that whatever be a year, but 100,000 shots, because I was like, I don't want that guy who's in there like running it 24/7 and coming back to me with problems every 6 months. And nobody has. I thought somebody was going to be using it that much, but nobody gets 100,000 shots. Turns out that's a lot of time on the tennis court. So
that's a lot of shots.
We took that out eventually, but it was interesting getting off the ground. We launched right as COVID was,
of course,
and so I had all these people who had pre-ordered their ball machines, and they were like, paid me some of the money up front. Now they're waiting for their product, and then like China shuts down and shipping shuts down, and it was a bit of a painful time to launch a product. But I have to say, people were super patient. I guess everybody knew COVID was making life hard all the way around, so that adds some patience. But I think, one of the things when I got into this business, I had a friend of mine was like, you really want to be in a business serving tennis players? Because aren't they going to be like crabby, high maintenance customers who are bugging you all the time? Well, I didn't think so, but it hasn't been that case at all. I'm really impressed at how patient customers were as we kind of got the early bugs out and got everything up and going. And so it's actually been a really fun space to be in.
And COVID could turn out to be a boon in that during the pandemic, tennis proved to be the safest place to be. So you had more people coming to the game because of the pandemic, and now hopefully we can keep them. And I think through technology and just making the whole process easier, that we can hopefully keep some of those players.
Yeah, well, tennis and a ball machine. Like now, you really don't have to see anybody. That was like the perfect COVID sport.
Well, Atlanta's the place you want to be. I don't know how much you researched our market. We have the largest recreational tennis league in the world that's based out of here. So much of our culture. Yes.
We see the little hot spots of where ball machines ship. And of course, Florida, California, New York. But I was surprised to see Atlanta sort of popping up on that radar fairly often.
Yes, because we are. The difference is we're not club generated. We're HOA. A lot of, in order to play outdoor, you have to have at least 2 courts that are lighted and access to a bathroom. So pretty much over the last 30 years, every developer who has built a couple of homes puts in tennis courts. It's that much of a part of the culture here. If you want to sell a home, you have to have tennis courts. So it's different than every other place in the country, but the fanaticism of tennis, and because you just have more numbers, you have just more normal people. The demographic is what you'd expect it to be to a large extent, but it's, one of my favorite lines from my players is they went into, and this is a few years ago, that they went into a neighborhood that they said the home started in the high 100s. And they said, uh-oh, we're in trouble, because in their mind, that meant first-time home buyers. They were going to play a bunch of younger people. But Atlanta and tennis and the real estate market and everything that goes along, that's what we try to focus on, the demographic of the tennis player. And that's why we're excited about the products that come out. And again, this helps us on every level, the recreational, within our jobs. How can we make our life easier, expose our players to more technology to improve their experience? So we're thankful for you guys doing this. Now we can hopefully help you sell some more ball machines.
That sounds like the perfect community for a ball machine. It's great.
We have multiple ball machines in my neighborhood specifically. I don't know how often, and Bobby, yours has multiple neighborhoods connected with the main club and quite a few courts. But this is the kind of thing that can do well here. I have multiple neighbors. My 227 homes, multiple ball machines in the neighborhood, and guys using them twice a week, and it's fun to see, and I love it, and I'd love to see more of these happen. So that's one of my my second to last question. My last question is my favorite, which is the king of tennis question. But the second to last is how do we help you, whether that's directly or indirectly, to be able to spread the word and say, hey, there's this great ball machine. We need to let Atlanta know. Now, it helps that we're the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, so clearly we're in that space. But what's good for your business? How do you typically promote? How do you typically find your customers?
Well, it's been pretty easy so far. We're kind of ramped up volume slowly at the beginning just to make sure we were, getting the kinks out early. And so we've kind of, ever since we started selling in 2020, we've basically sold out all the time. I haven't run any advertising. Things slow down a little bit in kind of January, February. When you're winter months, but it's just all been word of mouth. So people see it at the court and they're like, what's that weird little thing you're playing with? And then they tell their friend, we can also see like there's these little hot spots. Like I'll sell one in whatever, San Jose, and then I'll sell like 10 more around there, as the guy's friends all see it. So it's pretty much just been word of mouth. We're starting to do a little bit of getting some tennis coaches now on YouTube to incorporate it into some of their lessons and reach out to some followers that way. But that part has been good because I'm an engineer and not a marketing person. So it's nice that the marketing hasn't been too demanding yet. But being on a podcast like this, probably gonna make some more people aware of it. It's appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, it can definitely help, and we're in that marketing space, so that's definitely something we can get along with. Bobby, you got one last thing for Jonah before I
just
hit him with the king of tennis?
Inventory. If I was to order one today, I'd get one. How long? So
right now, because it's in the wintertime, it'll basically ship the next day. And we ship them by ground. So in Atlanta, you'd probably get it in 3 days after that, I'd say, coming from San Jose area. As we get into the summer months, I suspect that lead time will stretch out. But right now, we're pretty much building. We have them.
Fantastic. All right, Shaun, hit him with king of tennis.
I get to do it. All right, sweet. So yes. I spend the whole time waiting to get to ask my favorite question, and I will always remind those that I ask. I said this can be within your space, but my question is, if you're the king of tennis, is there anything you do or change? And that can be California, anything you're related to. It can be the world. It can be Atlanta, whatever you would want to do. And you've got a unique perspective within the technology world, and as an engineer, and as you describe yourself as an advanced recreational player. So your understanding of the tennis ecosystem is going to be pretty strong. So I'm curious as to your answer here. But Jonah, if you were king of tennis, is there anything you would do or change?
You know, you preceded that question in our email before the chat, and it's a good thing because I would have just given you a blank stare. You know, when I think about like the only times I've really been unhappy on a tennis court is almost always around line calls. You know, and even now I got my kids into tennis and I'm sitting there as a parent, and those are also the times when I'm happy. Like, that guy's hooking my kid. What's going on? So I guess this will turn back into a plug for our friends at Swing Vision, I guess. But I think solving the line call puzzle would be the one thing I would prioritize if I was king of tennis.
Okay, so, and I always push back when this happens. So is Swing Vision that solution? Because I hear, hey, I'd like to solve this thing, but you're king. You have to solve it, not just tell me what you're going to solve. This isn't a my first day in office question. This is, you're in office, people are looking at you now. You got to solve the line call question. Do you think we've done it yet? Do you have that answer?
That was not explained to me in the email before the podcast that I had to solve my problem on the spot too. I was thinking about it, and when I was in college, we had clay courts at the school I was at, and I love, like, that really helps with the line calls when you can go over and shout at somebody face to face over a little speck in the dirt. But that got me wondering, like, could you put tape down? Could the lines be like little velour tape or something that would show when the ball had hit them or not? So I think the challenge for swing, obviously, you got like a camera on one side that's high and far away, and I think they're doing amazing things, but it's certainly hard to see the line on the other side of the court. So I don't know how close they are to really solving it. It's probably where the solution is going to come from is cameras in the end. But yeah, it did start me wondering whether there was some like physical thing you could do to a court that made the area around the line actually show the bounce on a hard court.
Well, that's a good answer. It brings me back to a quick question. One more question, I'm sorry, for you. We have a ridiculous amount of pollen in the spring here. Literally, that our hard courts become clay courts. Would that, how much effect, if any, would that have on the Proton?
We have people using them on clay courts, and I'm like, report back. I want to hear if it's problems, and the clay court people don't seem to be having any issues. So it doesn't seem like it has a big effect. I mean, the Proton all by itself generates a lot of ball fuzz. So that's one thing. If you're out there and you got one, you got to like clean the fuzz out of it from time to time, because it just. So I don't think pollen is going to be anything it's not already floating around inside the machine.
Very good.
I like that. There we go. Line calls with pollen. I love. That's a good point,
That's
Jonah.
True. The line calls the pollen might be the solution. Just like
I had somebody years ago say, "Well, we'll give us a little spray paint or whatever, and whenever it bounces, a thing happens." But I think you're right. I think it's cameras, and I think Swing Vision is pretty close. There's a line call app out there that just does line calls. That's pretty close, and at least in that case, we can consider it an arbiter. So at least we have, okay, we're going to go with the line call of the app, whether it's 95% or 99%. Right. At least in that case, it solves the argument. So that is a good king of tennis point of view, because we're out there to have fun. And if we're arguing about how we're having fun, then I think we're missing the point. But Jonah, I appreciate your time. I really do. Bobby, as always, well done. And we will be in touch, because we want to help you get these ball machines out there. We think they're fantastic. I've tried it and loved all the interaction of it. So let's see if we can help you as much as we can, and we will be in touch. So Jonah,
well, that makes me happy. Thank you so much for having me on.
I appreciate your time.
Take care.